I'm going to turn on my microphone. If everyone would like to kindly join us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, we will begin the meeting. If we could say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time. Betty, I want to indicate that the board did not meet in executive session this evening, so we will not have that motion. Trustees, first item of business is approval of the minutes. We have two sets for February 28th and March 5. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of the minutes? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Action 4 is the approval of the treasurer's report. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We will move on to the report of the superintendent. Dr. Giarrazzo.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. Loud enough? Yes, I always get yelled at. Okay, so tonight is a really important night for North Shore. In a little while, I'm going to have the distinct pleasure of recommending Dr. Christopher Zublionis as our next Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. And on July 1st, he will take the instructional reins from Rob Klebicki, who, after so many years, will retire from the North Shore schools. And I want you to stop smiling so much whenever I say those words.
No, we're laughing because you made it sound like he was here when the school building opened. I mean,
Well,
you could have been a little nicer.
that's for another day. But he has been here for a long time, 16 years.
Since I'm
That really had the same effect.
Yeah. It's all good, right? So I'm going to talk more about Chris in a little while. But I do want to thank you, Rob, for your very hard work, your very meticulous work, and your very thoughtful work over the course of all these years. Teaching and learning in North Shore is our highest priority, and our programs are innovative, they're student-centered, they're inquiry-based, they are cohesive, and that you played a very large role in making that happen. So be proud of the work that you've done here. This is hard to achieve. It eludes so many school districts. Forget about Long Island, across the state, across the nation, across the planet, right? And so we've all heard the Chinese proverb that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? Rob, your journey here in North Shore is filled with 1 million successful steps, and I want you to leave here knowing that that is true. On behalf of the entire North Shore community, I thank you, I salute you, and I wish that your next 1,000-mile journey is filled with only good things, with much love, and an infinite amount of happiness. Thank you very, very much.
It has been a complete pleasure being here these 16 years, not 37, but 16 of the 37, I should say. And thank you for the honor of serving your school district, our school district. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, and I thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, so our process to recruit a new principal at Seacliff has already started. A national search will be advertised this weekend, and we'll begin the process of screening and interviewing candidates right away. It's our goal to appoint our next principal by the end of May. Chris and I will be meeting with faculty and Seacliff parents within the next couple of weeks to begin the process of building what we're calling a preliminary leadership profile. So we'll hear from our Seacliff parents, we'll hear from our Seacliff teachers and faculty and staff to say what is it that you're, what are the most important qualities that we should be screening for and looking for as we look for our next principal. Subsequent to that, committees of teachers, administrators, parents, and students will be meeting with candidates in mid-April. We've mapped it all out. Our goal is May 30 to bring somebody for appointment, and it's doable. Right, so we had this process for the assistant superintendent search started the Sunday after New Year's. We had targeted March 14th for an appointment, and here we are. So if you are interested in joining that committee work, it requires the commitment of a full day, and it's super rewarding. We'll get some information out, but if you are interested, you could let Seacliff PCA co-presidents Claudia Ames or Amelia Hecker know of your interest. You can certainly email me, and then teachers and staff will be reaching out to directly. Our security work and the development of our protocols are taking hold. We're making really excellent progress, especially under the direction of our new coordinator of safety and security, Bob Oldham, who just joined us in January. I'm pleased to report that the district has been asked to present at the county level by the Nassau County Department of Homeland Security and police departments on best practices related to a case study of a recent event that just happened here in our schools. So we're really getting this together. Last week, we held a community forum on the status of our pre-bond work. We're at a very important point of finalizing a scope of work around the themes of safety and security, instructional space, infrastructure, and energy performance. To have a look at the Herald, there's a good article that summarizes what happened last week that just came out electronically today. Once that work is done, we'll begin costing out the scope so that our recommendations can be brought to the committee and subsequently back to the board. And that way, that'll keep us on track for a potential November referendum. Today, I spent some time at the middle school at their call to action day. It was a spectacular day of STEM learning and experiences for all of our middle school students. So we had between drones and coding and wind energy and biomedical technology and making through the Seacliff Maker Shop. We had a presence there. The opportunities were truly endless for middle school kids, and every single kid in the middle school, 6, 7, 8, was able to participate in this. I actually spent a few minutes exploring this robotic arm in 3D using some VR goggles, and I've got the thing to like explode or whatever, and it was, I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I will tell you that I was having a good deal of fun, and I enjoyed it. I asked the kids were on it, and I said to them, hey, can I try that? And he looked at me, he was like, really? But he was gracious enough to go there. So it was amazing, and I want to thank Rob Dennis and Brendan Nelson and Amy DiMiola and our instructional technology resource teacher, Christy Lieberman. That is a new position that we put into the middle school, and her job is to work on expanding the use of instructional technology in meaningful ways in classrooms, so I thank her for spearheading that. The whole middle school faculty was on tap today, and today was really clear evidence for why the middle school, North Shore Middle School, is a school to watch. I mean, it was just pretty remarkable to watch, and everybody who was there donating their time. So it didn't cost us, didn't even cost us anything to do it. My K-12 learning walks with our directors continue to be really super rewarding. Thus far, I've walked K-12 language, fine and performing arts, humanities, STEAM. We've got special ed coming up, counseling coming up, PE and athletics coming up, and we look at instruction through various lenses to inform our supervision of teaching and learning. So for example, we will identify an SVO. So how is a teacher implementing the SVO of thinking with his or her students in a meaningful way? How in languages, how are our students, the student production of language in the target area, what's the percentage of that? And so what we do is we take a few hours, we start generally in an elementary school And it takes us about 3 hours to cycle through elementary, middle level, high school. We look through the same lens. We spend time in various classrooms while we're doing it. We then debrief as a committee afterwards, and that helps us to think about where do we need to take the program next, where does our supervision need to go next, how can we continue to bring out the best in teachers. They are really terrific. We're doing 3 per area in each of the areas that I mentioned. Lastly, we have our final line-by-line review of the budget this evening, and I will look forward to receiving the board's input before we put the final touches on a 1920 budget for the board's adoption on March 28. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We're going to move on to our next item is our report from the SGO. John?
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. So, is it on? Yeah, okay.
Crank it
Uh,
up.
Sorry, I'm not loud enough. Okay. So, new things going on at the high school this week, or last 2 weeks. All of my class sizes have grown significantly because we have been, a lot of French kids have come and replaced them for some reason. No, but it's a great thing to see. A lot of different interactions, new friends, new perspectives on a lot of things. Also, spring sports have started: golf, track, baseball, softball, etc. Looking forward to that season. And the SGO is starting a new program called the SGO Student Forums. It's beginning in the beginning of April. It's a safe place where students, it happens during the lunch periods, can come talk to trusted teachers about certain issues, pretty much have a conversation about what they're feeling, issues that they want to talk about. The first topic is in combination with CASA, health and wellness. So that will be taking place in the first week of April. Hopefully it can be a huge success for student perspectives and student voices. Also, we have a new club at the school, the Podcast Club, that is run by Mrs. Viza's son, James Viza, and a few other students. They put together podcasts, release them for the students they do interviews, student interviews, talk about important issues such as the new Game of Thrones season. Yeah, it's very important. Some awards that have been won recently. High school students, I know the mock trial team made it to the round of 16. I'm honestly not really sure what that means, but I heard it was a pretty big achievement. So congrats to them. Also, today, 4 science research students from the Long Island Science and Engineering Fair went to round 2, came back with 8 awards, which is pretty impressive considering a lot of students leave there with no awards. So congrats to them. Down in the music wing, we had a in-school recital a few weeks ago. The IB Music students, about 5 groups performed. It was, in my opinion, pretty great recital. I took part in it, but I think it went pretty well. We have some very talented musicians, not talking about myself, but some other people. And also we have the school play that is coming up next week. Buy your tickets now. They're already released on the website. There's a 7:30 showing on Friday, a 2 o'clock matinee showing on Saturday, and a 7:30 showing on Saturday also. Play is Pippin. It's going to be great. It's going to be extremely outgoing. It's a huge circus play, dance play. If you love dancing, singing, high school students, you should definitely come. And then finally, the robotics team has their major competitions next week, so good luck to them. And then also, like, everybody probably knows, but seniors won sports night. Just want to make sure everybody knows. So, yeah, that's about it.
All right, John, thank you for your report. Good luck to the robotics team. The IB music recital was really astonishing. John, congratulations on your LISF award today. And join us for Pippin. I think you'll all really enjoy it. Thank you, John. Next up, on regular business, we will move on to the budget review.
Okay.
I need to get my
Mic on. So the board we have a couple of things going on tonight. The board has some revised budget sheets, which I will explain to you. Move this aside. Actually, I'm not gonna move
Right,
this aside.
it's, yeah. The table feels enormous until you have your budget books.
Tonight, we're looking at supervision of staff. We're looking at some of our staffing needs for next year, which are still in a little bit of flux. We're looking at St. Christopher's budget lines, occupational and continuing education, community services, employee benefits, debt service, our revenue and finance sources, and our use of fund balance to offset the levy. So, firstly, that the last, over the course of our discussions, we've been talking about the use of the Victorian. And so the Victorian was originally designed to be a television studio. And as I've talked about a few times now, the students don't necessarily have not demonstrated an interest in a formal television studio. That's not to say they don't want to produce video or do some, production and sound. But we don't feel that we need to have a formal space with a television studio and very expensive equipment that will sit probably mostly unused. So over the course of the past years, we've allocated money in the budget to start equipping that site. Next year, we had $31,000 allocated to buy some more equipment. We've talked about having any future bond discussion deal with this issue, the technology suites, the use of the Victorian, and so we took that $31,000 out of the line for the Victorian. And so where we have reallocated that is back into the libraries. And so you will see, based on our discussion from last week, so we put $2,000 back into each of the libraries, and the high school will get $2,900. And then the balance of that money will go into personnel costs related to the hiring of our assistant superintendent. Yes, Marianne?
So, not that I have anything against libraries. I mean, I was an English major. I believe in books. But why did we take the money that was allocated to Victorian House and allocate it to the libraries rather than allocating it to outfitting the Victorian House for its new intended use?
Firstly, we don't know what that new intended use will be yet because we have not determined it. And secondly, when we did a review of the collections of the library, as I said that I would do for the board at the last meeting, we looked at particularly at the middle school, the collection is in serious need of replenishment. And so we want to get the libraries to the average of 60 books per student in the library for elementary, and 20 books per student for secondary. That's sort of the best practice in the research. And so the rationale is to start to do that, particularly at the middle school. So high school, she is attempted. Donna Rice she goes through a replenishment cycle. So she's looking at all the fiction right now. She's looking at supporting the upper level coursework with the books that the kids are reading. So this will be I believe that this is a good use of the resources in light of the fact that we don't know what's happening with the Victorian yet.
Right, but we're also looking at redoing the library so that we're talking about reducing the stacks. I mean, listen, I'm always in favor of buying books, but it just seems to me that we're not really thinking this through, because on one hand, you have a presentation from the architects that says we're looking at making the libraries more media centers and reducing books, and on the other hand, you're telling me we're spending however many not the full 31,000, but whatever portion of it is, on books. So have we looked at the technology and the ability to borrow books electronically if we're heading towards a media center? I'm just confused.
All right, so.
On the
I
other
will-
hand, I want to say I appreciated the data on the books per student and the best practices, and I think we've talked a little bit before about making sure we're differentiating between what level of schools we're talking about, and of course, the architecture presentation is theoretical.
Yep. So, yes, we have thought it through very carefully. We talked about it as a leadership team. We believe that we believe strongly that this is a good use of monies for the children in all the 5 schools. The books are about, depending on where we buy them for, they can run, where's the average? I have it here. I think it was like $15 to $20 per book. At the elementary middle level, they start to get a little bit more expensive at the high school level. So we're not talking about thousands of books, but we are talking about meaningful supplements to our collections that are constantly, overturning. For example, the middle school library should have in its collection about 12,000 books. It currently has 8,084 books, and the average age of those books are 17 years.
Wow.
So
The average?
the average.
I just want to say, in the context
Trustee?
of what we've spoken about at various fora the past several weeks, Deborah Small talked to us a lot about the tactile importance of paper books for our youngest readers to take those books home. We've heard from a lot of parents who say, I believe very convincingly, and obviously, that our children are drawn to screens and technology perhaps too much. The idea of having a small investment in books makes a lot of sense to me at those young ages. So to me, it's a good reallocation. Thank you.
I would ask, I have boxes of books that I've been meaning to take over to the Glen Head School. If you have parents who have books that their children have outgrown and are no longer using them, I know they will use some of those. I've spoken to Lori Nimmo about this. They'll use some of those collection books that you bought in Scholastic over the years in the classrooms. I just need to get Mikey while he's home to bring him over to Glen Head School. But we can also make a push in the community if we feel there's a need for paper books for those of us who have sometimes 2 sets of the same books at home. I just hope that we're doing this not in reaction, but have thought about the long-term plan.
Absolutely, we have. Okay, so those are the adjustments from what has happened before tonight. So tonight, if we can start on D15 to 19. That's supervision of instruction.
We're ready for questions on this?
Yes, please.
I think it's probably for Olivia on the curriculum instruction, other expenses, 2010, 499. And it says that nearly 108,000 is a grant offset. Is that a single grant? Is it several grants? And are those grants, are they earmarked for, when you receive those grants, are they designated for a particular purpose? And how much flexibility do you have in deciding where that funding goes?
I'll take that question, Tim. The grants that are referred to in this section are the federal grants, the Title I and Title II grants, and they're designated for professional development, and I forget the exact title of them. So we have discretion as to which professional development we use them for, but not that they have to be used for those purposes. Okay.
Got it, thanks.
Sir?
Please, thank you.
On page 16, I know we've spent a lot of time here talking about changes to the administration and trying to become as responsive as we need to be to instruction and supervision, but also streamlining and trying to be more efficient as well. So this is a question for Olivia. On page 16, lines 20, 21, 50, 96, 51, 61, and 99, 51, 61, kind of the middle of the page. The directors at the different levels, those have gone up, but yet we've eliminated positions, so I want to kind of find out where that money goes and comes, because overall, we have been more efficient, and yet these lines are up. So just explain that.
Yeah, to your point, we, as you know, we eliminated over the last 2 years, we reduced the number of administrators by 2 positions. But as some of them were teacher leaders, and as teacher leaders, sometimes they call them to cover classes, and because they cover classes, we budgeted for half of their salary in the teaching code. When they became administrators, we had to move all that money to the supervision code because we are required by the state to code each employee's salary to a particular line. That's called a 3-part budget. And because of that, we have to make sure that we put them in the right place. And by moving them, even though we lost 2 positions, because it was 50% in teaching, we moved 50% of that salary from teaching over into supervision. That's why it looks like that. But overall, there's 2 positions that were eliminated.
Okay, so looking at it holistically, we have streamlined and
Right.
eliminated those positions
Yes.
in the overall supervision, regardless of what we're calling them.
Yes.
However, in budgets, we need to call them something, and when
Correct.
we do, this is where it shows more, and within the, obviously, gigantic direct instruction portion is where those eliminations were seen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So in that, in the structure of what we're proposing, so a couple of years ago, we had 2 directors at the elementary level, one for humanities, one for STEM. That remains. We had 2 teacher leaders at the middle school, one for humanities, one for STEM. We collapsed those last year when Jim Mendonis resigned, and we restructured social studies. So last year, we began with a 6-12 structure in ELA and social studies. Prior to that, we also had 4 full-time teacher leaders at the high school, one for mathematics, one for science, one for social studies, one for English. Yes, okay. And so we held on to the math and science for this year and piloted a director of STEM for 6 through 12 to complement the elementary structure. And then we had a content area specialist leading high school mathematics and science. This year, in our analysis of which model best serves the structure best, we decided that it was a better model for the supervision and leadership of instruction to have 4 6-12 directors, one in ELA, one in mathematics, one in science, one in social studies. And so that led to the elimination of the teacher leader positions in mathematics and science, okay, and a reconfiguration of the director of STEM position. So the person who was in the director of STEM role will become the director of mathematics and instructional technology. And the teacher leader for science will become the director of 612 science. And so that led to the elimination of the 912 math position at the high school. So that's the history of how we got to where we got in these reductions.
And just to, because we discussed it before, we have arrived at a point where we feel this could be a model going forward.
I believe so. We're going to keep monitoring it very carefully, and we'll advise the board as we move forward. But I think this is the right model.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I have a question. Rob might be able to answer this. I'll make you work before you leave in June.
Good plan.
It's not a huge expense, but I was just curious. It's on page 15, account 2010-450-99, the testing materials for COGATs, which are cognitive abilities tests. Can someone explain to me what they're used for?
I'm sorry. At the elementary level, the regulations are that you have to identify students who may be gifted and talented, although ironically, you don't have to have programs for students who are gifted and talented. It's one of those regulations. So the COGATs we use to identify students who are in the COGATs are given to every child. I shouldn't say they're not given to particular children, it's every children on the grade level. In grade 3, where we identify students in their strength areas, also in areas where they could use some assistance, if you will. And so we use those to our advantage and at the same time meet the regulation of being able to identify students for potential gifted and talented programs. Now, it just so happens in our school district, we have our school-wide enrichment services, so we do have programs for students who need extra in those areas. Also are incorporating the COGATs in the 6th grade as well for students for the same purpose.
Right. So currently, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's 3rd grade and 6th grade.
Correct.
It's New York State regs?
New York State regulations.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few more follow-ups.
Okay.
Are parents aware when their children are taking these tests?
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Are families allowed to opt their children out of these tests?
Interestingly enough, I don't think we've had any. I don't want to state that for a fact because I would have to go back and check with the principals. I don't know the answer to that. If
I
they-
might have just opened up a Pandora's box, but I'm just...
I hear where it's coming from.
Right.
Yep. Actually, do you mind if I turn to... Okay, go ahead.
Who owns the data? Who is the service that administers the COGAT? Is it Pearson? Is it...
It's a place called Riverside Publishing.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm assuming they own the data?
No,
We own the data.
We own the data?
We own the data. There's a Data Privacy Act that any third-party vendors we use to administer tests, they have to comply with protection of the data. But we actually own this. The kids get administered the test, the results come back, and then we use them instructionally.
Okay, so they're not selling this data to Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth, et cetera,
No.
et cetera?
No.
Okay. My concern, and I'm hoping someone can assure me that you use additional points of data to identify kids with a variety of strengths and challenges, the opportunity to access enrichment services, and I'm talking about equity of access. I'm concerned about grouping and sorting kids. So that's why I asked that question.
No, that's a fair question, and thank you for asking that.
And I just wanted to put that out there, and I really, I know their parents are concerned about the ELAs, the state ELAs, and math, and this is something else that, it doesn't take that long to take the COGAT, I understand. I'd like to know that parents are being made aware that
Yep.
they're 3rd graders and they're 6th graders are
Yeah,
undertaking
they
this test.
absolutely get notified.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So, one of the concerns that has been registered to me by parents who, at the elementary and at the middle school, is that I would say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we eliminated the position of an enrichment teacher at the middle school, and we changed the model at the elementary school. From my understanding, there used to be, my daughter was in it, there was a gifted and talented program where the kids were pulled out, and we've now switched it to a push-in model. And there is a concern that the kids that are gifted and talented are not being challenged sufficiently at the elementary school, and in particular at the middle school, where there is no really gifted and talented program. So what are we doing to meet the needs of the students who register as gifted and talented to challenge, so now board children cause trouble. you know?
Yeah.
Or they just don't advance. I mean, they're, you know, we should be meeting their needs as well, as much as any other student, and what are we doing for that?
That is, in years past, the previous middle school principal had used a push-in model for more of a school-wide enrichment for students, and it's a concern that our current middle school principal has had, you know, similar to your concern, that if students are coming up, particularly from the elementary school, having these services, and then we don't have them in the middle school, what happens to those students? One of the reasons for bringing back the COGATs in the middle school was to continue to assess which students we might be missing from 3rd grade into 6th grade, and he has provisioned, the position was never lost at the middle school, it was reconfigured into doing push-in services.
I think that's debatable. I do. I mean, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I think the way they reconfigured it, it left parents with the distinct feeling that there was no program for students who tested as gifted and talented. And I'm glad you're giving it in 6th grade too, because children develop at different levels, right?
Right.
So a kid may be not register in 3rd grade, may, as they go along, register in 6th grade or bloom in 9th grade. I mean, they continue to grow, and we should be affording them opportunities.
Right. I want to answer both Trustee Viz's question and then your question too, Marianne, with that. I want to assure the board that the COGATs are just one of 3 elements in identifying students for, if you will, who need more challenge in their, other than the existing curriculum, so to speak. Oftentimes, of those 3 elements, oftentimes a student may not score very high in a COGAT area just because of students, you know, anxiety sometimes in taking tests and that not being the single measure. So sometimes students may not score as high as some of the requirements are in that area, but they still receive gifted, I shouldn't say gifted, but extra support for challenge in their
Right.
program.
Differentiate learning.
Exactly. In the middle school, again, the position, if you will, the 1.0 FTE for somebody serving in that role was never eliminated. It was reconfigured so that certain people were pushing into classrooms, so that 1.0 was distributed among various people to push into classes. Rob Dennis is looking at bringing back those services rather than having them distributed and being push-in services.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Did that answer for Lisa?
Any question, any other questions?
in this section?
2010.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so moving on, we can look at the staffing. Staffing is all throughout the budget, but I wanted to just call the board's attention to the section C in the narrative section, the instructional. And I wanted to just go through a couple of things with the board on this. Everybody there? Okay, great. So what you'll see, the first page is pages 2 of 87. That's the 1920 projected enrollment for next year. So as of right now, we are registering kindergartners, but it is nowhere near complete. But we are projecting 47 students at Seacliff, 60 at Glenwood Landing, and 51 at Glen Head. That can change over the course of time. It can go up, it can go down. We just never know. That said, in those counts, we've allocated for 3 sections at each school based on those numbers. Moving on to 1st grade, we are projecting that the Seacliff cohort will land at 37, is what we're projecting right now. It is currently at 44. Am I right? 42. All right, so it's currently at 42, and we are projecting 37, 38. That is going to collapse into 2 sections from 3 in the next budget, and the Glen Head projections, we're projecting 44 right now. So we're holding those in for right now in 2. and we'll support both of those sections with a full-time teaching assistant. Outside of that, in the total aggregate, we are going to be down one section at Glenwood Landing because we have 4 sections leaving 5th grade and only 3 coming in. And the one section reduction at Seacliff, based on the rising 1st grade enrollment. We will keep an eye on this very, very closely over the course of the spring and into the summer. There are contingency positions built into the budget, so in the event that the section counts rise in any way, we will work with the building principals. We usually build 2 sets of sections as we're doing this, so we'll build 3 sections, we'll build 2 sections, we'll build 3 sections, we'll build 4 sections. So when it's time to make a decision, we can do that. Last year, the Seacliff sections, really caught us by surprise because we really were expecting more students than ended up arriving or staying through that first week of school. So it didn't make sense for us to collapse those sections after kids were already assigned to teachers. So they are in very small sections right now. They will go into sections of 18 and 19 for next year. So stay tuned for more on that. Any questions on the elementary staffing at this point in time? No? And so in the past conversations, we've talked about the positions that we're adding. So we have the 1.0 guidance counselor that's proposed for the budget. We have a 1.0 health and wellness teacher that's proposed for the budget for next year. And then we have a part-time reading person who will primarily support students with special needs that we've identified, also budgeted for next year. So that is that's the elementary program in the aggregate. At the middle level, our staffing levels are flat. We're repurposing, so we're looking at this enrichment model and trying to do this better. And so we are repurposing a 4/10 math teacher to provide additional enrichment in mathematics across the 3 grade levels. But at the middle level, we are very, very careful and cautious about tracking. So putting kids into a track of a math course when they are 12 that sort of predisposes where they will land when they're 17. So we want those flexible, we want their enrollment to be somewhat flexible, but we also do need to figure out ways to support kids at all the levels of the spectrum, kids who are achieving at a very high level, and those that, all throughout the middle, those that are struggling. We really need to think about how to do that better. So we're moving that forward for next year. And then at the high school level, for staffing is largely flat for next year. The course requests are coming in. So at the last meeting, I talked to you about the elimination of the Global History Lab. That has enabled and opened options for a lot of different pathways for kids. So we're seeing more electives running than we have in the past for kids who are younger. Typically in our schools, you really can't start to take electives until you get into the 11th grade because of all of the pre-slugged requirements. We're trying to loosen that a bit. So we know that of those STEM electives that we're proposing for next year, gaming, robotics, app design, we know those 3 definitely have students enrolled, and then Albert and I will go through each section by section, look at the counts, see where things can be tightened up or things that just don't have enrollment. So it's very, very preliminary right now. It'll probably be more solid in, I'd say, 3 to 4 weeks. We'll be able to start locking schedules. So that is, and we just talked about the administrative structure. Last time via special ed, we talked about how the structure will lead to the the increase of a 1.0 in special education to support the expanded ICT model, right, but also will lead to a reduction in teaching assistants across the system. So, does the board have any? It's very hard to answer very specific questions about specific enrollments at this point in time, but I can do my best.
Any questions about staffing plans at this point? No?
No?
I'll just add that while I'm of course appreciative of our contingency planning, I would really like to encourage the community to register their children for kindergarten as soon as possible so that we can plan. Thank you.
Okay. St. Christopher's, page 31. Okay, so this one is pretty straightforward. We have students that are placed at St. Christopher's, which rests within our school district. It is a sort of in and out. So we have to budget for the expenditure, but then we also budget for the incoming revenue to offset that. And so we have four students who are who we believe will be attending next year, and so that's how we budget for those lines. That comes every year.
So as a pass-through, we don't incur the expense, but it adds to our overall number in such a way that it sort of artificial, the pass-through sort of
Yes.
artificially inflates what looks like your per-student cost.
Yes, it does.
When you're talking about particularly high needs children
it
that come
does.
in at the higher cost.
Yes, it is often, when you look at when we look at what we call our budget drivers, it is often a budget driver, even though it's
on both
ultimately
sides.
budget neutral, right?
Jesse, do you have other questions for this St. Christopher section? We're good? Just Dave?
So it gets counted as a cost on the expense side, but then the offset is not, unlike other lines where we see little red markings underneath it directly, it's recognized on the
Right.
revenue side, which is
Right.
why it's not done that way. And I know it's on the revenue side minus the state aid.
Correct.
Where's the state aid recognized?
Oh, the state aid is commingled with what we received.
Okay, so it's part of the revenue side, but not on the line for that specifically. And the numbers that you have, which are generally, they're to the penny for what that state aid is going to be, or to the dollar. Okay, because I see the line is, it's within the same year, so you recognize the 460 this year on the expense side and the 460 on the revenue side, because you know what the state aid line is going to be
Yeah,
that's
the
taken out.
state aid line, they apply the district state aid ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And because our state aid ratio is low, that's what we're gonna get.
Okay, okay.
But how can it be the exact number? Because we don't get the revenue to the following year. So we pay it this year, right? And then New York City is always a year behind.
No, New York City, this is one expense that they tend to
Because
pay
they
us on
used-
time.
Okay, because you used to say they were like a year behind.
No,
So
they're not a year
they're-
behind. We
okay.
get
We get
our-
it in the same
Yes.
fiscal year. I thought we were a year
We
behind.
build them, it's built in my office and
Okay,
we get
because-
it on time.
We were always told, I think previously, with Dr. Melnick, that it was a year behind. So it's not. Okay, that's good news.
I looked at that, it's a good question, Mary. I looked at that specifically because we're up a student this year, so it really affects you more, but that's why I saw it all flows through in the same fiscal school year.
I mean, years ago, New York City used to delay the payment.
Right, it was a year
That's
behind. That's
right.
what I'm
That's-
thinking of.
But we're able to work with them, and they have been on time. And we try to bill them on time, too, so.
Excellent. I know you are always collecting the money, Olivia. We have no doubt on that.
Sending people bills.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good with the section? Thank you.
terrific. So if we turn to page 32, this is the other instruction, occupational education and continuing education. Are there any questions here? This is continuing ed, summer school supplies, and our BOCES occupational education.
I have a question.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
has our enrollment been in these continuing ed classes for each, I guess they're semester driven?
I don't know. I can get that answer for you, but I don't have a good sense of that.
And it's basically self-sustaining?
We supplement it, yeah. We supplement the lines here, you'll see how we do that. That's supplemented by 67,700. So it's not totally self-sustaining.
But there's revenue that comes in, so people pay,
Yes.
whatever the
Yes.
nominal
Right,
fees
there's
are.
revenue, but it does not
Yeah.
rise quite to
But it
the-
doesn't fund itself.
And is there minimum enrollment, so, for one person to take watercolor?
I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know. If you want to email me some questions, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
get them from Gene and
No, I think it's
Samantha.
great. I've taken
Yeah.
them, and,
Yeah, and some of the classes do not run. I have
Right,
taken
right.
a few of the classes, but because we didn't have the enrollment,
they got,
they had to
okay,
cancel
so there
them.
is,
Yeah.
right, okay. Could I make a quick suggestion? Many times after certain courses I've taken, there's a little survey. It says, this course met my expectations, it went beyond my expectations, this instructor's amazing, or, it would be kind of neat if we had a standard thing so we could kind of assess, that the courses are interesting to people and they're enjoying them, or, I guess they, that would be helpful just for our edification.
And the
that-
program has a director that would handle that.
Yep, definitely. Okay. Okay, so if we turn to page 46, we could look at community services. So we have community rec, rec supplies, transportation for communities, senior citizens, and that is where we fund CASA expenses related to PD. Are there any questions?
And this is flat.
This is flat, yes.
Could I make a suggestion? I think I emailed you ahead of this, but I think we all received a really amazing newsletter from Allison Camardella, the president of the board of CASA, which, if anybody, I read it, and it was such a great newsletter. It was succinct. It kind of reviewed the things that the programs that they've implemented thus far this year, and some additional information. Would it be possible, and I know that Kevin McGilloway is now the new executive director, be nice if they could come and give a short presentation, and I was really happy to see that newsletter. It was very well done.
I think we should bring it up probably.
In new
Old
business?
Even old, if we brought it up before, either, something. And we'll do it.
Well, it's new to us, but it was,
I feel like, yeah, maybe.
I can readdress it, yeah.
Yeah, right, wherever you want to do it.
Okay. Okay, D47 to 48, these are our employee benefits. These are very big numbers. 26,068,068.60. This is our dental insurance, our long-term disability insurance, our health insurance, our life insurance, our social security payments, our teachers' retirement system payments, our employees' retirement system payments. These are payments that we...
Workers' comp, too.
Workers'
yeah.
comp, we have absolutely no control over how much they are. They are directed to us. They are down this year by $167,000. That's largely due to the teachers' retirement system payments, which are down. Are there any questions about this?
I just had a question. I know they're down because of interest rates have been low and stock market's performing well and the investments are successful. But the cost to administer has gone up. I noticed lines 9020-801-00 and 9030-801-00. The ones for TRS, for example, it went from 200 to 460, which is a huge jump. And then even though it's not really traveling together. In other words, the cost to administer are more than the cost of, its cost to us as a district. Wouldn't they follow in tandem?
You're talking about the difference between 800 and 801, right?
Correct.
TRS program and
Correct.
TRS administration? Those are,
9020, 801, yeah, on page 47.
Yeah, this is where we break out the TRS cost related to administrators versus teachers.
Okay,
Okay, so this is actually based on the
okay.
salaries of the personnel in that group. and it follows the salary.
Gotcha. So for costs that are associated with more higher cost employees, the administration cost goes up disproportionately
Yes.
due to legal changes and other things. Okay, understand.
Correct. So there has been some discussion at the state level through NISBA, through New York State Council of School Superintendents, about the value of creating a reserve for TRS. So when you have dips in TRS payments like we do, because it's so inconsistent, that there has been some discussion about creating a reserve that boards can have, so when you have a spike in a TRS payment, you don't have to go to the levy for it, you can go to your reserve. But currently, that option doesn't exist. We do have one for ERS, we do not have an option for that in the TRS.
And you will have an increase next year. in
Yes,
your
I-
TRS, absolutely.
There's no question about
No
it.
question, based upon this year's performance.
There's no question about it. Okay, any other questions on employee benefits? Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. All right, so if we look at page D49, we have our debt service payments. These are the payments that we, that fund our principal and interest payments. And so you will see that, you will see those numbers. Are there any questions?
Room 49.
Okay, D49.
We do have the bump up in the tax anticipation note interest, which we had discussed, but do you want to explain that to make sure everyone understands?
Yeah, last year, interest rates started going up, and we were taken unawares because there were 3 rate hikes, and that affects the rate that we borrow. And so, because we budgeted 60,000, and the interest rate that we were charged was about $80,000. So this year, we decided to bump it up to 85, hoping that, it will stay stable. But we don't know. It could go down, it could go up. However, the reverse side is all the tax revenues that we collect from the county, because interest rate is going up, we are also earning more on interest income. So it offsets each other. And in fact, we do earn more interest income from the taxes that we invest than the tax anticipation note payments that we have.
Justin, do you have other questions on this page?
Very good.
Okay.
Okay. And so the last piece of our discussion tonight is around our revenue and financing sources and our use of fund balance. So Olivia, do you want to just take us through where those revenues are coming in from?
Yes.
Where do you
Thank
want
you.
us to look?
Go back to the narrative. No. We have two different pages where we have the revenues. One is at the very back, the last tab. The big ticket items here are the pilots from the properties that were removed from the tax roll in 2015-16. We anticipate that there will be a 2% increase in the amount of pilot payment that we'll be receiving. And then we have some state aid. We still do not have the final estimate from the legislature. So we are still using the governor's state aid estimates. The rest of it are interest income, just like I talked about, and tuition charges from New York City. We also expect a rental of property. We rent a space for the before and after school childcare, and the rest of it is fund balance. All that adds up to about $19 million. The rest of the revenue to support the budget is property taxes. And right now, we anticipate that we have to levy about $88,350,000. And that will be spread among the 4 classes of property in the district. All we do in the business office in August, what we do is that we send the levy to the county, and the county is the one that apportion it among the 4 classes of property based on the adjusted base proportion.
So the total, so just so everybody's clear, the total, what it costs for us to run our schools for the year is what we're proposing is 107 million. Where's my number?
107 million, 799.
954 and 90 cents. That's what we are saying it costs to run our schools. And we pulled $19,449,220, $19,449,225.11 from additional revenues, and the balance of that has to come from taxes, and that's that $88 million. That's how it works. So that revenue budget has to match our expense budget, and so what is not made up in additional revenues through the use of our reserves and state aid and all that stuff comes from our taxpayers.
Olivia, and you would say, so you already mentioned state aid is a little obviously hard to predict since they haven't given us the number. But likewise, the pilots can be inconsistent with regard to the 2%.
Luckily, we have been seeing a 2% increase the last 4 years, since 14-15, when the pilot law came into effect. So we anticipate that we will continue to receive an increase of 2% each year. But because we want to be very careful, most school districts that I know of are recognizing the amount when they receive the actual payment. We have decided to accrue it as we go along, just to make sure that the money that we project is what we are going to receive. So I'm pretty certain that this will occur, but it all depends on the grouping within those classes of property, because this year what I saw was there was one piece of property where the assessment went higher. All the others remain the same except that one property. So that may increase it a little bit or not, but we don't know. And Nassau County will not share any information
Right.
with us.
So the large pilot rate's been consistent. We had the smaller pilot on the peaking turbines that went down a little bit this year, but
Yeah, and that also, it's also because the county, there are about 10 municipalities that receive income from those 2 picking stations. And they use the assessed value of all the 10 municipalities, class 4 and class 5 assessed, class 3 and class 4 assessed value. So last year we got about 167,000 more, and this year it went down. So it depends on what the other municipalities assess their properties at versus ours.
thank you.
So you
I
project,
mean, for the description, not necessarily for the news, but thank you.
sorry, so you project flat because you never know what's going to happen from one year to the
No.
next? Well, from last year to this year, we went down.
The amount I projected is the exact amount that we'll be receiving next year. We receive it December of the previous year for the subsequent year. So we know that that's the amount we'll be receiving for the picking station.
But I'm talking about the projected 4 or 5 years out. You keep the number flat for now
Correct.
because, of course, you don't know what's
We
going to
don't
happen.
I don't know.
There's
yes.
way to know.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, even though they're using the property, of course.
Right.
Far more utility.
So, and we should point out that this is a significant use of reserves,
Yes, there is.
right, between,
Correct.
Do you want to?
Sure. So we are, so how do we balance this? We bring in a million two from fund balance. So monies that we don't use in the current operating year, we use to offset the budget. We are bringing in $600,000 from the Marcelino and Levine glide path money that is referred to. That there's a whole usage chart in in Olivia's section of the budget, so we brought that in. We started using that low. We peaked at $1 million, and now we will start to bring that down and use that gradually over the course of, I think it's 8 or 9 years or something like that, right? This is the fifth or sixth year that we're using it. We're also bringing in an additional $500,000 from what was the tax certiorari reserve, and then we have interfund transfers. So all told, it's the use is
2.3, it's
Yeah.
3.5.
$3.5 million.
But the 1.2 is not reserves.
No, that is not.
Let's just be clear.
That's fund balance.
That's
yeah,
fund
there's-
balance, that's what's left over,
Well,
which
that's what
every
they
year
said.
we always put like $1 million towards it. So the reserve portion that you're using is the 800,000 plus the 350, so 1,150,000.
I think,
No,
no,
it's-
go over one column, it's 2.3. The 600, the 500, and the 1.2.
0.6, 0.5, 1.2.
Okay.
See that, you're in the current year.
Last three?
Yep, 6, 5, and 1.2.
And the blue section? 165, all right. But the 1.2 is not reserves.
It is not
There are two
reserves.
different 1.2s in the column. One is fund balance and one is the transfer from ERS, which is
From
reserves.
ERS, okay.
Any questions or concerns here, trustees? Okay.
Okay, very good. So we will start to, after tonight, we will start to put our final documents together. We will start talking, we'll bring the board a final budget to approve on March 28, and then once the board approves the budget, it becomes the board's budget, and then I will start to get people informed about what's in it. So I thank the board for the good process and your support, and we will look forward to wrapping this up in a couple of weeks.
Okay. And if anyone missed the other 350 pages of the budget we discussed previously, I want to assure you the video is online. You may watch it at your leisure. Any other questions? We're good with the budget review section? I'll move on. Okay, we're up to discussion 8. We're going to go to comments from the public. If you would like to share a comment with the board, if you would please approach the podium and give us your name and your town of residence. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Grant Clutter from Seacliff. First, I want to thank the board for taking the time to meet and talk about the election topic earlier this evening. I have a lot of things that I want to say in response to many things that were brought up, but I am not going to, because I think I'm one of the few things standing in the way of the Zublianis family for their well-deserved but I will say one thing if I can. And it's my understanding that the board in the district does not have to advertise the budget and the location until April 2nd. And that's the earliest. I believe there's some flexibility until April 6th. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But if not, I would like to ask the board to hold off on voting to approve the location as well as everything else that's in that section of the agenda tonight. Hold off to vote till your next meeting on March 28th. And the reason I ask is to have the board put on a board proposition, as was, I think, appropriately suggested by Mrs. Russo, and in the spirit of Mr. Madden's civic desires, which I agree with. I think for this topic, and what I learned tonight from the meeting earlier, is that there may be a broader set of views than may have been clear to me than before tonight. And I think the best way is to let the community vote. And I know from the attorney's perspective that was stated at that earlier meeting that it's just a referendum. It's just a poll, as Mr. Ludmar said, or advisory, as Mr. Feldman said. And that's fine. And I think that that's good if it's just that. But I think even so, I think this board can commit to say, we're going to let the community vote, and we're going to let the community decide. If they don't think it's safe, if they think it is safe, and they have, strong desires about civic, desires and opening the schools to the public, that's fine. We can all differ in agreement. But I think that vote can allow us to get a clear picture, and the board can say in advance, it's a referendum, but we're going to support what the outcome is of that, regardless of where it comes out. So I would, in short, again, kindly request that you don't vote tonight on finalizing that, and instead, in the next 2 weeks, prepare a board proposition and vote on that in conjunction with it at the next meeting.
Thank you. We have other questions, comments? The floor is yours.
Jennifer Lamont from Seacliff. I'm just concerned about how this will be carried out. And, there's a very vocal minority that's in favor of a certain position. And we had, I think, 10 people at the town hall meeting tonight. So I'm a little concerned about whether or not the public, I love democracy, but I would need more detail. I think we need to flesh this out more. It's a lovely idea, but is the public informed about this? Does the public, do they understand the issues at stake? Have they been informed? Does the Legislative Action Committee need to inform the public about the issues and post something so that they have access to what we should be studying before we vote on a referendum? I am on the Legislative Action Committee. I would be willing to facilitate that. So I'm just, I'm cautious about just doing that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The floor is still open. We'll close public comment.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to action item B. I'll pull out the first two items.
Pardon me?
And then pull out the first two items. You want me to make the motion first, and then you'll speak?
I will be happy to do that.
Okay, let's do it that way. Trustees, I'm going to make a motion that we vote on the first two items on personnel under B, in which we will accept the resignation of Christopher Zublionis as principal of Seacliff School, and then appoint him as the assistant superintendent of instruction. Do I have a motion? And a second. We will now pause for any questions or comments. If you don't mind, I'll defer to Dr. Giarrizzo for the first.
Great. Okay. So this is likely worth the wait, Team Z. All right. So I have a couple of things that I just want to say before we get to the board's action here. So simply put, I am excited. Innovative, principled, loyal, an unparalleled sense of instruction, smart, insightful, trustworthy, humble, confident, respectful. These are the adjectives that were used to describe Dr. Zublionis by both his references and over the 40 committee members that he met with as he went through the process to become our next assistant superintendent. Make no mistake whatsoever, the selection and appointment of an assistant superintendent is one of the most important tasks that a superintendent can undergo. The person needs to be honest, forward-thinking, hardworking, and committed to continuous growth. Chris joined 88 applicants for this position. He immediately rose to the top of what was a most stellar candidate pool. And I wanted to just make a quote. So the naturalist and father of our national parks, John Muir, who you likely know of, Chris was a social studies teacher, he once said that the power of imagination makes us infinite. And so while pragmatic, Chris is a dreamer. He is an innovator. and he's someone who sees what is possible in all situations. And that's one of the things that I admire the most about Dr. Z. As you could likely imagine, his selection has been received with great enthusiasm. I've gotten a couple of dirty looks from parents saying I've stolen their principal, and I say, you got that right. So tonight, Chris is joined by his wife, Kate, and his children, James and Carolyn and Rory, right? We have Zublionis in the house, right? So this is a bit of a tough environment for little people. So Connor's at home, and I bet you we're all probably just a little jealous of him.
Aren't we all? No.
I am. Guys, you must really be proud of your dad. Yes? You can clap for him, it's cool. And I want to thank all of you for coming here to support him tonight. That's really cool. He was really excited about it, and I'm glad you're here with him and for him. So thanks, guys. The things that resonated about Chris's candidacy with me the most were that he would be a really terrific thought partner to me and with me. He is a terrific communicator. He is an outstanding listener. This is always clear in his interactions with his teachers, his parents, and students. I'm excited that I believe that he will elevate my thinking. He will see the role in a fresh way. And I believe strongly that he will help me to become a better superintendent. So thank you. As principal of Seacliff Elementary, Chris is about building a better world, and his commitment to moving children, teaching and learning, and the work of the district is truly unparalleled. So add to all of this a great sense of humor, and you know why I am so excited for me. I'm excited for the district. I'm excited for our students. I'm excited for you and your family. And I wish you much success, Dr. Z. And that said, I recommend him to the Board of Education with my highest possible recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's make him absolutely. It's great to see so much support in the room for Chris. Thank you all for coming out tonight and showing that. And I will say, yes, I've received a number of calls from concerned parents about leaving their principal, and the only consolation is that the district did not lose him altogether. So congratulations to Chris. Trustees, any other comments? Thanks.
The only thing I will say is that tonight I was in a local restaurant getting a quick dinner. I didn't plan to say anything, but I ran into an unnamed administrator getting a little thing of soup, and I said, "Oh, you're coming to the meeting tonight?" And this person said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, why? I don't remember you being on anything specific on the agenda." And this person said to me, "No, I'm just there to support Chris because I'm excited for him." And I think that said a lot. So congratulations, Chris.
With that, trustees, I would like to make this official. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. And there's something...
Before you say a couple of words, I did a little texting with your colleagues today, and they just said swag. And so you have a lot of Seacliff stuff, but now we need to, not that you can't wear your Seacliff stuff.
I'm like, what?
We still want him to wear his Seacliff stuff, right? But we also want you to have some things from the other places as well. So, here is a Glen Head Elementary keychain for you. And here is a I almost kept this for myself today, but I figured that would be a little tacky. Here's a Vikings dry shirt for you. Thank you. A Unity Day shirt from the middle school. And
That's very great.
from the Fine and Performing Arts, from the music department, another T-shirt. So you are well on your way.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
No pen? You gonna give him a North Shore pen? Where's this?
I forgot about the pen. You do have one. You do have one. I owe you a pen. All right. In my zeal to get you apparel, apparently you have nothing to write with. So we'll work on that. But really, congratulations. I know, Chris, you wanted to say a couple of words tonight. We'll take a couple of pictures. Make sure you get one with your
Family.
with the peeps, all right? And we'll go from there. Right, really, congratulations. Really.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to say a couple of words, if that's okay. Thank you for your time. First of all, Board of Education trustees, Olivia, Rob, Dr. G, thank you for this opportunity. I'm so grateful to become the next Assistant Superintendent for Instruction for the North Shore Schools. I remember very clearly my first day of work here in July of 2009, coming from another very good district, but coming to a school district that was filled with educators in the middle of the summer. And that said something very important to me, and it was symbolic of what I've come to know over the last 10 years, both as the Director of Social Studies and as the Principal of Seacliff. The high level of professional learning, instructional innovation, commitment to consistent improvement that is such at the heart of North Shore. We never rest on our laurels. We're constantly reinventing ourselves and reinvigorating ourselves. And I've been so fortunate to work alongside intelligent and highly skilled professionals in the development of new courses, the creation of cutting edge curriculum, the use of flexible instructional approaches that are tailored to our students. And we are so very lucky to work with committed families and our kind and creative students who are just so precious, even the older ones who I've come to know over the years as well. And they value a broad and balanced 21st century education, which isn't common in all neighborhoods. In short, it's such an honor and a privilege to work at North Shore. I believe that, as we say at Seacliff, our purpose is that we're in the moving business. That's our work. I believe that our work at North Shore is guided by the following question that we ask ourselves every day in so many ways. How can we continue to make learning opportunities for our students increasingly relevant and meaningful so that they can build a better world and better selves and discover their dreams for others as well as for themselves? And we understand that a commitment to others complements and doesn't negate a commitment to self. And that improvement is a never-ending journey based on an inquiry-driven life. None of this is possible without a Board of Education that is so deeply committed to moving, teaching, and learning, and have so many conversations and deliberations about what good instruction means. Very rare also. For years, Mr. Klebicki has set the standard for hiring talented and committed professionals in a very unique way, and for creating professional development opportunities that are world-class and the envy of other school districts. And that's not just me saying it, but my friends who work in neighboring school districts who I've shared our work with, and they are always saying how amazed that they are with our professional development and the curriculum work that we produce here. I'm honored to take the baton from Rob at this exciting juncture, and alongside Dr. Giarrizza, who's bringing so much to our district, to a new level of performance as a unified school system. Again, thank you for this opportunity to continue working in North Shore, whose mission I so strongly believe in and am committed to, and I look forward to the work ahead. Thank you so much.
All right. I should. Ready?
Carry on.
All right. Trustees, we will move on with additional business of the meeting. Could I have a motion on the balance of action item B, please?
Motion.
And I have a second. All in favor? Thank you. Action item C is the approval of a community education instructor. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. All in favor? Thank you. Action D is acceptance of the claims audit report. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Action E is the approval of budget transfers. Do I have a motion? And a second?
Second?
Do we have questions or comments on the budget transfers?
Yeah, I had a question.
Trustee?
The money spent on the pressure testing on the fuel tanks, that is something that is an annual thing, is a new thing?
No, we do it on an annual basis, but this was required by Department of Health.
Okay. The only reason I ask is we spent a lot of time talking about potentially a gas tank that isn't crucial to our operation.
Right.
And we talked about the potential cost and/or liability of removing that. I just think it's important to say these words to highlight that keeping it in situ is not free. So I've said
Removing
my
it
words.
opens up a whole big can of worms. That's all I'm saying.
Other questions on the budget transfers? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Action F is the acceptance of donations from Arts Angels of $979 to cover concert tom-toms for the middle school band ensemble.
Motion.
A motion and a second. Thank you to Arts Angels. All in favor? Thank you. Yes, congrats. Action item G is a donation from the North Shore High School PTO to the high school. They're donating $1,000 each to the classes of 2019, 20, and 22. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
And the second, comments? Thank you to the high school PTO, of course. And all in favor? Action item G is the approval of additional pit musicians for Pippin. Do I have a motion?
It's just
Motion.
each.
Oh, I said the wrong thing, sorry. Action item H. This is action H. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Action I is the approval of the resolution to add a proposition to the ballot for the budget vote for May 21 regarding school transportation eligibility. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I have the second. Dr. Giaruzzo, do you want to
Yes, I can speak to this for a
articulate
second.
that, just so that everyone is clear what's going to happen with that?
Yep, so in order for us
It's
to
good
change,
news.
it is good news. In order for us to change transportation mileage limits, whether they are good or not good, depending on your perspective, right? That requires a referendum from the voters. So in this case, we were able to reduce the mileage limits from 1 mile in 6 through 12 to 3/4 of a mile for K through 12. Right now, we've been 3/4 of a mile for K through 5, and 1 mile for grades 6 through 12. We are able to reduce the transportation limits at no additional cost to the taxpayers. We did look at reducing the transportation limits to a half a mile for elementary, but because the ridership is much higher at the elementary level versus the secondary level, that would actually add additional costs to the budget. So this is a good thing. We will, make sure everybody understands it. I want to thank Michelle Hall, who is here tonight. What a treat. Right. For the good work that she does in monitoring all of the ridership over the course of the year. It is, she will talk about a can-do person. She will always say, "Let me take a look at it. If I can do it, I'll do it." And so this is a win I believe, for everybody. I think this is probably where the changes to the transportation limits stop, unless the board
For
wants to.
free, right.
For free.
but, Yeah.
But thank you. Good work.
Thank you. And for those of us who saw the data, it really is a tremendous amount of work to go out and find out how many kids actually get on the bus in each direction, different times of year, different weather conditions, to find out where we can add spaces. So thank you, Michelle, for doing that, and Olivia for your help on that too. We really appreciate it. Because it's important to the members of the district. So this is exciting. We can do this again.
Not to mention that we asked for it, and then we asked for different things, and we asked for different weather, and you kept doing
Well,
it,
yeah, there's
which
that part.
we appreciate. That said, I'm not committed to this being the last move ever. I mean, the numbers were at 30, 40%. Let's see them get up to 60, 70 for free. well, let's see them get up to 60, 70 for free.
You don't have to do it a whole quarter mile every time, too. We can go to 1, we can go to .9. What about that?
But for this year, I
People
feel
should think
more
out
than
of the box.
satisfied.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, we're kidding.
What? Yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? All in favor? Terrific. Action item J is the approval of the resolution for the date of the annual school district budget vote and election. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Do I have questions, comments, and discussion?
So, is this the day we have to do this?
It
This
is.
is the date, right?
It
We
is,
don't
'cause
have time for,
No, we don't. The reason why is because we have deadlines with the publications that we have to meet.
Other questions or comments? I don't want to make you talk, Tim, but you look like maybe you want to say something.
I'm thinking of saying something.
I'll give you a minute.
Just on this issue in general, I see where, I'm concerned where the narrative is going, that it's presenting this either-or question, that it's either the safety of the students or, upholding and promoting civic values. And I think that's just completely, an either-or fallacy, false choice, whatever you want to call it. I stand by what I said right from the beginning, is I don't believe for 1 second that kids are any less safe on election day than they are on any other day of the year. I don't think it poses any risk whatsoever. And I hope that does not become the narrative, that you're choosing between one or the other. I think it's both, and we're getting both. The kids are safe, and it's bringing the community into the building, one section of the building that's completely isolated from the other sections. The kids get to see an election actually taking place as they pull up to the school and see vote here signs, and it opens up discussions in the school about what's going on locally, and I think that's really important. And again, it's a false choice to say it's one or the other. It really is.
I would just second what Tim said. I have every confidence that we have addressed the security issues that have been raised. I want to thank Peter for the Homeland Security, the police reports. I would be full favor of having more than the supervisors and custodians of whoever we're going to be using for security for that day. And I think that we need to think about security every day, and I would agree with Tim. I think that this probably is safer than any everyday at school, particularly when there are outside events going on, inside events, people in and out of the school. I feel very, very confident that we have created a secure situation. And I would also echo that this is really not an issue of, safety, civic. Security is a far-reaching issue. It's not an either-or, and I think that if we continue to go down that road, it is going to be divisive in our community. Thanks.
I would say kind of a different twist. Throughout this process, we have heard from a lot of people in the community, and we've heard a lot from Peter and from Bob and from the administration about what's going to be tightened up and what's going to be better this year. Let's, as Joanna said, I have every confidence we're going to do it, and yet I'm still saying this. Let's make sure that whatever gaps there were, whatever doors are supposed to be closed are closed, whatever temporary parking is supposed to be there is enforced, whatever back door to the kitchen that can lead through to the other door that we've,
Whatever it is.
is appropriately locked. So we really, I guess, prove to the community and even to ourselves that what we've put forth here is really going to work.
So you're not choosing between last year's election or the election of the year before, but what the election can be.
Right, and so we have a whole new calibration this year on the election, and I have every confidence that that the measures that we put in place, the consultation that we've received from Homeland Security, from Madison County Police, from our own security staff, are going to be able to, there will be demonstrable and noticeable changes that the community will see when they get here, and still be able to vote in a free and fair election. That's also critically important to us.
I'm looking back this way.
I really have nothing new to add. I concur with the thoughts of my fellow trustees, and I think we as a district have been committed to improving our security, and we've shown that. We've done our due diligence, not just with spending, but thoughtful spending, and consulting with the experts in the field. And I agree that this is not last year's budget or the year before. It's a going forward process. So.
And I appreciate that. I'm sorry, Rich, please.
I really don't have anything to add. That I echo what my fellow trustees have said. I feel that we have taken this very seriously and have really looked at it carefully. It's not that we made a frivolous decision here. And security and safety of our students is certainly ultimate in our minds right now. But I think based upon what we've done, I personally am confident that it's the right move to do, to keep it here.
I just want to add, I appreciate the time of everyone here on this issue, discussed it on a number of occasions, and I appreciate everyone who went back and looked at the bus depot again and took pictures, and we went to the Victorian House again, and we laid out schematics, and really spent all of that time to fully investigate every possible option that our attorneys felt were within the constraints of the law. And so thank you for all of those efforts. They were really significant. And thank you to everybody that's here tonight that is here because they're concerned about the safety and security of our kids. Other comments? Okay, we're ready to vote. Action item J, all in favor? Okay, thank you. We will move on to action K, which is an approval and agreement between North Shore and New York University. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Questions or comments? This is new. I believe it's with regard to student teachers for those interested. All in favor? Thank you. Action L is the agreement with North Shore and Doherty on, for Pippin, the costumes. Do I have a motion? Motion. In a second? Questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Action M is between North Shore and the Science Museum of Long Island, Simple Machines for Glen Head. Sign me up. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? I really do want to go. No. Action item N is to use, for North Shore to use the facilities at St. Rocco's for AP testing, et cetera. IB testing this spring. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a second. And a second. I have a question.
Yes.
It's not air conditioned by any chance, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
That's fabulous news.
Yes.
Because we've all seen that data.
Yes.
There's data. It's like, take the test in the AC. All in favor?
The desk might not be big enough for some high school.
Oh, are they really?
Some of them are quite small.
I think I asked for the motion second. All in favor? I distracted myself. Action O, between North Shore and Greg Tang on professional development with math. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
We didn't discuss it.
I would like to.
Okay.
Questions or
I have
discussions?
a question. This is 3 days of staff development. That's $7,400 a day, which
Yes,
is basically
yeah.
$1,000 an hour. What are we getting for that?
Probably the second most renowned person in the area of mathematics instruction, the first being Yip Banhar, who we've had come to the district. What's most important in this piece here is the professional development, particularly at the secondary level, and moving forward our Singapore math approach to teaching math. We're at that stage now where we're in the current 7th grade, if my calculations are correct, and moving forward with the continuation of the approach to teaching math with students as they progress through the middle school and secondary school level. Greg also has a complementary piece to Yipan Har's work that is one piece that's sort of, if you will, not missing, but a complementary approach at the elementaries level as well that we've not been able to secure until we've worked with him.
So is it, I know it's 3 days of staff development.
Correct.
But is there continuous communication with it if teachers need to reach out to him? Is there something there with that?
Yes, with not directly with him necessarily, although he always invites people to email him and provides an email address, and he does respond to us. But it's more so the work of the administrators who oversee the math department to continue that professional development using him and the work that was learned, or the professional development that was learned on those days, to carry that through in his absence.
But this would be for 6 and 7, right? Not, how does it go into, I'm just curious how it goes into 8 through 12, because 8 through 12 is a Regents curriculum, right? The Ben Har stuff was for the Singapore math in the elementary, right?
Right.
So this would be focused more on 6 and 7?
It'd be 6 through 12, because it's more about an instructional approach to the learning of math. It's not about a curriculum.
Okay, I know, I heard you say 6 to 12, I'm just,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wrapping my head around it.
Yeah. We've developed over the course of actually the past 3 years completely on looking at the way we teach math, initially at the elementary level, but then growing into the secondary level. I could probably spend a whole night telling you what that approach is. It's really more of a focus on not solving problems, but problem solving, and how you engage kids in that process, in the learning process of learning math, not at any level, not just at the elementary level, but at any level of instruction. Oops, sorry.
I too am very interested in how it translates once you get to
Yeah.
stuff like algebra, but I suspect we'll have to leave it to another night.
Yep.
Maybe
We
to
haven't touched
another
June 30th,
assistant superintendent.
No, I would really like, I don't
Yeah.
mean this in a sarcastic way. I would like to have like a follow-up on it, because.
Oh, I'm completely serious. It feels very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels, and I guess I know that like they've changed, the regions, so that it's a different kind of regions now than what was traditionally, because my kids were sort of in that transition phase when they were going through the high school, and I know that the questions are more focused, it's really more reading comprehension and the technique rather than the answer, the mechanics of it. So I guess I'm assuming that this then ties into the way they've redesigned
Right.
the regions.
Right.
Yeah, so it really, the PD around this is primarily focused on the mathematical practices that we want kids to use when they are working in mathematics. So what we'll do is we'll talk with Carol Smythe and with Amy DiMiola and Nicole, and we'll get something, we'll get an update on this, and we'll put it in, we'll send it home to the board so you can see the journey of how we got there, what's come before, what we're doing now, what the goals of what now are, and how this fits into what we're planning to do next. And we'll get that home so you can understand that.
Because Carol has done some great stuff in the past.
100%.
And with parents too, right? And it's very
Yes.
concrete when you're little, and you have these, things you work with, and you're like, yes, I get it. And then we
Yes.
talk about algebra, and we go, no, I don't know.
And so those same things that are good core practices in mathematics at the elementary level are equally important core practices for kids in middle school and high school. So we want to make sure that our approach is consistent all throughout our system, and that we're not necessarily focusing on, so not compromising content, but also having kids have a deep understanding of the mathematics associated with the content that we're teaching.
I
So-
assume there's a prohibition on videotaping this since it's work product.
Thank you for asking that question, because we do videotape the Bonhar events
Right, but I
that we
think you have
then
to get
future
the-
use
yeah.
for, but let me find out
Find out, 'cause
where we
it
are with
should be,
that.
I should look back at the contract. Usually it's in the contract that there's a prohibition on videotaping.
Yeah.
But if there's
We had
not,
some
it
back
might,
and
like, might
forth,
be
yeah.
interesting just to get, really, I don't want 3 days, but if you can if you give me like the highlight reels. I mean, you know.
We'll work on something.
I'm with
Right,
you.
right.
Well, Sarah's in science, Mary Ann, we can go check out the math
Yeah.
PD.
I'm good with algebra, I'm like,
I'm very good at algebra. It's the geometry that really put me
But I
over
will,
the
but I
edge.
will tell you that as doing pre-algebra at home with someone who's now left the elementary school program, I can see how the Singapore math concepts help them understand conceptually the algebra they're doing. It's not just a question of memorizing formulas and what to do. They can still see those boxes in their heads and fill in the blanks because of the Singapore math concepts that have been inculcated in them through the years. So I
Yeah,
assume
you
you're just
really
drawing that
can,
higher.
yeah.
That's fabulous. to
Yeah.
hear.
It's really interesting. We still need to vote. Is that all right? Ready? All in favor of Greg Tang? Betty's like, please. Action P is a health services agreement, and action Q is related to special education. Can I have a motion for those two?
Motion.
Second, okay. Questions? All in favor? Thank you. Brings us up to R, which is between North Shore and the Long Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence for some presentations to the health classes in 7th and 8th grade. There is no cost associated, but there was a contract. So do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? A question? Sorry.
All right, this is R.
Yes.
So this is a single class period for each of these kids, and the agenda is like 3 or 4 pages long they want to accomplish, and some of it seems like a little below them age-wise, some of them seem a little above them age-wise. Have we done this before? Have there been any feedback?
I don't think we have.
I don't
don't
have
think we-
to. I haven't
we
seen
have-
this
It
ever.
seemed very broad.
I don't think we
I'm
have.
trying to accomplish like all of social emotional wellness and sort of crisis prevention in a very small amount of time. But I guess we'll try it and we'll see what happens.
It's an entry point for us that will then
And there's
inform.
no cost, and it's not a bad thing.
No.
It just seems,
Yeah, it's big, and then what the idea is through our strategic plan, as we're trying to infuse these concepts into the curriculum, we will build on those likely in the E3 squads, in health class, and then as, in a more integrated way
okay,
throughout
starting
the.
point, launching point for evaluation.
Yes,
So, Peter,
yes, ma'am.
this is one day of presentation?
Correct.
So I assume this is a subject that could cause some churning in some children? Do we have planned follow-up support for those situations?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I have a question, as a follow-up to Joanna. When there's sensitive topics like this, do parents get like a pre-teaching awareness?
Rob will write the parents, and then sometimes parents ask us not to have their kids participate, in which case we honor that. But generally speaking, yeah, we'll let parents know what's going on.
Peter, is there some way to narrow the scope of that instruction? I mean, 4 pages in one class seems overwhelming.
I'll have a
to me as an adult.
conversation. I'll have a conversation. I could have gotten these answers for you. All right, I'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
It may not, the presentation may not be as broad as the description is. The
No.
description may be just all-encompassing, and they may take it directionally while they're in there.
It's a very heavy topic, though, to...
Absolutely, but important.
Well, it's all over the news media. Honestly, they only have to turn on Channel 2 News.
I'm just worrying about those who are living it.
Right.
Right, I understand that, but, I mean, it's so pervasive right now,
I understand.
and not in a positive way.
Right, you should do it, but you gotta have the plan for the follow-up, and you gotta be clear on what we're doing.
Exactly. Okay.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Discussion 9 is comments from the public. If we have other comments from the public, the podium and your name and town of residence. Kathleen Reynolds.
Is that better? Hi, Kathleen Reynolds from Seacliff. I would just like to read a note from my son addressed to Dr. Girizzo and the Board of Education trustees. Dear
That's a very
Dr.
nice
Girizzo and North Shore Board of Education trustees, thank you for sponsoring me for LISVA, the Long Island Strings Festival. I felt excited about it because I like to play cello and to play in a big orchestra. I liked being in a special festival because I'm getting better at my instrument. Sincerely, Colin Reynolds.
That's terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colin asked me to read it to you because he's a little shy about having the spotlight on him. But this is also indicative of where your special education dollars go and what is possible when a child feels confident, secure, as a result of small class size, as a result of excellent special education resources in our district. This is what happens. You get a child who thrives. You get children who thrive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
I was like, oh, God,
I'll take that.
He wants to leave that school.
Rob Mazzella, Glen Head.
Hi, Rob.
Lost in the minutia of action item B was the resignation of Ms. Chung. So I just wanted to publicly thank her
Thank you.
for all that she's done over her many years of teaching. She made a tremendous difference to my children and has instilled a passion in music that I have a feeling I'll be paying for many years to come. But I still wanted to thank her on behalf of myself and all the other parents who had the pleasure of having her teach our children.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That's
Thanks,
well
Rob.
put. And we will have the retirement thing at the end of the
Okay.
year, too. Yeah.
Right. I would also like to congratulate Dr. Zubionis. He probably doesn't know who I am. But Betty played a cruel trick on me many years ago and put me on the email distribution for every school in the building. and I did receive a year's worth of emails from him. and I was actually very impressed with everything that came out of the Seacliff building. So congratulations.
Rob, we were building up your stamina. It's an SVO thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, I didn't think anyone was going to, I was like, oh, he's never going to be able to follow Kathleen, but, you know,
Yeah,
that
you
that was
did
pretty
it.
good.
That was a good one.
Good evening, everyone. Danny O'Connor, Glen Head. Most of you know me. One is, I don't really know Dr. Z, but I'd like to congratulate him because, one, he's brought the most community residents to a board meeting since I've been coming to board meetings, so I'm glad he's going to be up here because hopefully more community residents come. Second, unfortunately, I missed the earlier meeting, and I really wanted to see what people had to say for, pro, and con with the voting. I personally have been involved, and I think the board and the school has the children's security as the utmost important thing on their agenda, and I've walked through with the police department, and I've been involved with the middle school. So I, for one, do not believe, there's any major issue that they wouldn't look at for the security of the students, and even for the community members that are coming into the building. So I think it was well thought out. I think the board did a lot of homework on it, and I appreciate that as a parent and a community member. The one thing I did want to say, and I don't know if you noticed, but there were some signs up around the neighborhood, and being in private business, one of the things we always kept near and dear to us was our trademarks and our look and things like that. So I'm not sure if you noticed those signs, but it was brought up to me from some other community residents that they actually felt those signs were made to look like the school itself made those signs, and if you look at the design, it actually mimics the design on your middle school sign. So just, again, I consider school, but it's a business. As a business, you always want to protect your intellectual properties, and if people are doing that, and I'm not sure who they are, it really should be handled, because that's a big problem today with an identity theft, whether it's a person or a company or a school. So again, it's something that maybe not everybody notices, but it did look very close when someone brought it to my attention. I actually took a few pictures, and I was in awe of how close it looked to the logo. So it's just something to be cognizant of. But again, I appreciate the time, and have a good evening.
Thanks,
you.
Dan. We did record the meeting before, so if you find yourself sleepless one night, you'll be able to see all the comments. I think that is, okay. We're going to close public comment then. We will move on to discussion 10, which is old business. Trustees?
Old business?
Yes.
So
I think I wrote something down on my phone. I apologize for looking, but that's where my notes are. Go ahead.
So, we discussed this somewhat at construction steering. I just want to make clear that in the bond presentation, that was very preliminary work and broad work, and that we will be working on getting some numbers going for different proposals that are going to be under the bond, and we will have other community meetings about the scope of the bond. But I just want to, since we were talking about security, I do want to raise one concern that I raised at construction steering is I don't want our dollars only going to security. I mean, I believe security is, very important. I think it's virtually impossible to completely secure any one of these facilities, especially at a music event, a play, other events that are going on, athletic events. I want to make sure that we're allocating money for the repairs that we believe are, essential, but that we are also allocating money that we feel is necessary to enrich and enhance the curriculum here. I would much rather see a STEAM room or an updated library facility than a single point entry if we had to choose. There are other ways to secure our children going in and out. Not that that should be discounted, but I just want to be cognizant that when we're spending the money, that we're doing what needs to be done, repairs, but we're also keeping money for instructional opportunities that need to be done, and that we're not just focusing on security.
We have other old business? And obviously, we'll have the whole board will have
Right, but
extensive
there were some-
conversations about the
Right.
bond, and I don't want to have an extensive conversation. I'm not trying to encourage anyone else to have the extensive conversation now, because obviously it's not on the agenda, so I just wanted to let everybody know that we will absolutely have
Well,
that
my point
opportunity.
was that we were going to have more detailed discussions.
Yes,
Because there was a
absolutely.
lot of feedback from the sort of broad, the one we had at the board, and then we had the community meeting.
Mhm.
I just wanted people to be assured that, the scope has not been determined yet, and that
Correct.
we will be looking at the numbers. We're not just doing it in space.
Correct.
Thank you, yes,
Yes.
we are not doing it in space.
That's correct. So if I...
Absolutely.
May I?
Yes, I just want to make sure we're not, you know what I'm saying, crossing the line about having too much of a discussion without having it on the agenda and having everyone who wants to be involved.
Yes? Okay.
It's a yes.
So, the pre-bond work is structured into those four broad areas, right? Safety, security, infrastructure, instructional needs, and then the energy performance contract. So all of that has been, prioritized, and and so the next piece of this is the final scoping, the cost estimating that's associated with that, and then we'll bring that forward to the bond, to the board. So, but all good points, and I agree with you. We'll do something big and bold.
So, old business, I was looking through the minutes of last meeting, we talked about the demographic study and the capacity study for either the 14th or the 28th.
Yeah.
Don't think we're doing it on the 14th, so 28th?
You don't know. No.
Not tonight.
No.
Yeah, right.
28th, yes.
So what is that including, that discussion?
We have a new demographic report that we should discuss.
Okay.
I think we should have a board discussion about it, as the enrollment projections that we discuss here are often based on the previous study that we spent time looking at, and not on a more current study that was performed that has very different numbers. And the capacity study, which is done in concert with our new architects, we haven't seen.
We haven't seen, and we should discuss
We're making,
because.
I mean,
I'm
potentially a
ju-
Right, in
huge
conjunction with
decision
the
on it.
two.
Okay.
I just think
That's
so, yeah, sorry.
No, I'm going to be in Philadelphia for the next meeting. I don't have to be here for that discussion, which is
I mean,
fine, but it's...
My honest answer is, I think it's more important for the bond.
Right.
So I'm not beholden to the 14th or the 28th, but I'm just mentioning it because it's on my agenda, and now it's on the radar. So if you want to postpone it till a meeting when we're
No,
all
I
here.
don't
think
have
it's
to be
important for you
here
to
if I
have
have any...
information.
Right,
It's
so
important for
it's
the
just as
public
long
to
as I
hear
get, and
about
if
it,
I
but-
have any
right.
thoughts,
Okay.
I can forward them to somebody. Okay.
Great.
Yes. And a second piece of old business. We had talked about rewriting or at least reviewing the LAC bylaws. It should be noted that LAC has not been able to meet since 4 meetings ago. We've had a snow out, we've had 2 failures to have a quorum, and in fact, the meeting 4 times ago didn't have a quorum. We just got together to try to keep progress.
I don't think it's 4. I think it was January, you didn't have a quorum, right?
If you don't mind, I'm just going to finish my thought, and then we can respond. Because what I was trying to say is that if we are unable to get people to come to these meetings, good people who want to help the district, people who, when they're there, have tons to contribute, if we can't get together and we can't reschedule and get together, we're not actually getting anything done, and we're now looking at their next meeting being in April, and they haven't made progress. So I think we should potentially consider looking at the composition of LAC and thinking that maybe a smaller group would be better. To some degree, it's like, I forget the name of the case, but the more people there are, the less individual responsibility people feel as part of the committee, and then we suddenly don't feel the same onus to be there. But I mean, talking to Cheryl, she's like, I'm sending notices we sent out all year. It's disheartening, and I think as a board, we're looking for the work to get done. So, Marion?
I was just going to say, and I would appreciate if you would not do that. It's not, I don't think it's 4 meetings. We had one in January, there was not a quorum, one that was a snow out, and this last one, that was not a quorum. I'm not opposed to looking at the composition, but I think it's more than just the composition of the board with LAC. I think we really haven't directionally still worked out how to utilize LAC well. We had an issue come up here that we had LAC look at that was not on our agenda, which was sort of sidetracked us from what we were doing. I think LAC has not been effective for many years, not just this year. I think it was most effective during the LIPA campaign, which was really, I think, a unifying force. There has been no Super LAC this year, which we were supposed to try and motivate. So I think what we really need is not just a review of the bylaws, but a review of the missions and the goals. I think it's a broader discussion than just numbers.
I absolutely agree. We shouldn't have that here, so it's been raised, and we should have that conversation.
I agree with that.
So we need to put it on an agenda? Is this what we're saying? Okay. Okay.
Are we adding it to a future agenda?
I think we should.
I think we are. I don't think we're saying necessarily which one. I think we're it's okay, we can look at how full they are and find the slot for the discussion?
Right,
or
but I
is there
think we
some-
should do it after LAC's next meeting, so that LAC can weigh in. I don't really want to have this discussion
Mhm.
without the people who are involved.
Yep.
So our next meeting is, I have to look it on my calendar. For LAC. Bear with me 1 second.
Do you
guys.
have it? Because I have it if you don't.
It's always on my calendar. This March will be April, right? April 6th. No, that's instructions hearing.
April 17th.
April 17th, okay, it's that week, I knew it was that week, yep, the 17th. So I think it would have to be after the 17th.
So your meetings, your next meetings after that are, you have May 9, May 30, and June 13.
Do you have a sense if any of those are more amenable to another topic?
So May 9, we are talking with the board about the literacy audit. On May 30th, we have 2, homework and world languages. And June 13th is always the tenure and retirement recognition, so the board likes to keep that clear.
So I like May 9th.
Yep.
So we can
Good.
put on for a discussion item? Yes?
Let's do that.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Further old business? Okay, we'll move on to new business.
I'd like to discuss 2 things. The first is the Long Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence organization, and I've had some interaction with them in my professional life. They're very good. They provide programs that I think are very valuable to our young people. Just as an aside, I went up to my daughter's college this weekend to pick her up for spring break. And in her dorm, on every floor, as we walked up 3 floors in a 1928 dorm, at each lobby, there are bulletin boards full of very good information for college-aged students. One of which was relationships and relationship violence. And I don't know where we could fit this in a broader way, maybe as guidance looks at their offerings in the strategic plan and how they want to offer real true guidance counseling from a counseling perspective and getting our students ready for that next step post-secondary. And I think we talked about on occasion providing them with programs when they're launching, how to negotiate relationships in college, not just, how to manage a checkbook. But it is very difficult and it is very complex. I hear it and I live it from my daughter every day. And just seeing those things in the lobby and combining this together, it would be nice going forward that we could provide something like that to our older students who are getting ready to set off to college. We have health here in 9th grade, and I don't think they learn anything else throughout the next 3 years after 9th grade. I'm hopeful, and our director of guidance seems like she's got some great ideas to inform our kids in that way. So that's a resource, this particular group, and it was cool to see that. So it's just something to think about.
Do you think, Lisa, the PTO at the high school is always looking for new programs? They used to do a lot of the programs that CAS is now doing, so I think that would be something that they may be able to bring in some speakers on that. I would, as well, where you would have the parents involved, evening programs, not just programs during the
Right, I think you
school
could-
day. I think you could do it on both fronts.
Right, on both fronts.
And
I
that
know
would be an
they-
interesting thing, I
Yeah.
think, to bring to the PTO, because
Yeah.
they're always looking for something.
I think about, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, they had something along those lines. PTO sponsored something for, dating. And I don't think it should be from the young men and young women together.
Totally.
So, yeah, the PTO is always a resource, and
You
if,
could bring it up at your president's meeting. I think they would be interested in something like that.
I will.
Other new business?
And certainly emphasizing the effect of substances on dating violence.
yes. It's there.
And certainly, don't wait till we get to college to discuss it.
No, and I feel strongly about it, yeah.
Thank you. Do you guys have other new business? I have one new business. It's unfortunately about legislation, but anyway, I'll bring it up. Because there might be we got, at least some of us got a letter, I don't even remember who was copied on it, about that there's, and Olivia may find this interesting, that there's apparently legislation pending that there's a salary cap on what retired police officers can earn elsewhere. So there's been a bill that's proposed that would raise that cap if the retired police officers are working in schools. And so we had gotten a letter asking us to support the raise on the cap and to
Amend it to include peace
suggest,
officers.
yeah, exactly, suggest the legislation include people who had the title peace officer rather than just police officer per se. So I wanted to bring that up. I thought it was interesting. I feel like it's come up in the safety committee before about scheduling issues. Olivia's just like, we did it. Okay, well.
I assume the districts are, as people are spending more on security, it's a scarcer resource, supply and demand.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, and when they hit the cap, we're just, that's it. You can't work any more hours.
It's like juggling to get them to work because they don't want to exceed the cap.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have to be careful because if they exceed the limit, they
Affects their pension.
they put their pension at risk. So
They do, you get the, and I've actually seen unions do
Yes.
it. Their unions are really serious about
Yeah,
that.
they pay attention to it. You're
They
absolutely
do.
right. So they pay very close attention to it to make sure that they don't exceed the max limit. So what the legislation that's been proposed is we would be highly in favor of it.
So how do we help?
I was going to say, can we, like, it's something that's accomplishable? A letter from me, a letter from Dr. Giarrizzo, or from the two of you jointly, can we just get
We'll write a letter.
something out? Rather than, try and put it through a longer mechanism?
We'll write a letter.
Since people seem
We can write
to
a,
feel like,
yep,
just
we
like
can,
yes.
we can write a letter.
You know, what might be interesting is if you wrote a letter and posted it on our Facebook page so that the community could see it, and if they wanted to do the same, because listen, if I hadn't gotten the email, I wouldn't have been aware of it.
No, of course, no, right, there's a tremendous amount of legislation out there.
So if there's
and I think
something that
people
we
would be
feel
interested
about.
Because it speaks to our security issues.
And these are people who live in our neighborhood, who've been with our schools a long time. They've watched our kids grow up, many of them. So I mean, I think many people feel an attachment, and they like the fact that they have that same face there greeting them
Yes.
every day.
I think that's very true. That's well put.
So post it on the Facebook.
There'll be a letter.
We will write a letter.
Other new business, legislative or not? That's it?
Just think it's important for Dr. Z to know this is a short one.
We did want to point that out.
Talk about stamina. You better get working on it.
All right, that is the end of the agenda. So if there's, board does not have other business, we will adjourn for the evening. We had the two public comments already, but we'll adjourn, and you can, of course, come chat with any of us, Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
And that was short.
You got these?